Hello and welcome to another Swift Barcelona. Thank you much for coming here, and thank you to Talent Garden and Ellen Orr to hosting the space. And today we have two talks and maybe something else. But to kick it off, we have Kelvin talking about, I think, meta glasses.
Welcome everyone. You're very welcome here at Talent Garden this evening. We're going to talk about phones away, glasses on. So, I'm Kelvin. I know some of you might recognize me from speaking at Swift Barcelona, whenever it was NS Barcelona, last November, about Tourist. I'm a lead mobile engineer at Levin and Rigner. Strategy and aesthetics is how we work across so many different domains and disciplines. So mobile, web, design, marketing, and of course, spatial is a big part of what we do. And this evening, we're going to talk about smart glasses, specifically Meta smart glasses, Meta AI glasses. So let's start by answering the question, what are smart glasses or what are AI glasses? So if you take a really good camera sensor, a 3K resolution camera sensor, you put it into a frame of glasses and you have microphones both for yourself and also that can project out with a really good speaker setup, as well as an AI ecosystem that you're able to just stop and look at something and say, hey Meta, what am I looking at? Or what is this? That's the ecosystem, and that's the functionality and the suite that you get from the work, from working in this domain. Back in November, downstairs, I spoke to a group of hackers about a toolkit to program for these AI glasses from Meta. It was publicly announced at that point that there was a toolkit, but not everybody could have it. Very few people actually had access. So I was able to tell a group of people, I have something that you don't, and I can't tell you about how cool it is. But that changed in December. So I want to take you back to August of last year, where we actually had access to a private toolkit with Meta, and we were feeding back and we were prototyping, iterating with them on some of the things that we could do. And Meta invited us to their Connect conference. Think of it like Meta's WWDC. And because we had access to something like this, we wanted to make sure that we built something meaningful to really help the team show how committed we were to working more in the platform, but also to help ideate and help feedback some improvements and some changes. So we thought a lot about what we might want to do, and we came up with this idea of a museum curator, that if somebody walks into a space and they have smart glasses and they look at something, we want to understand that they're looking at something, and maybe we do something. We play a bit of audio or send a notification. Think of this like a spatial guide, hence the name. So we needed to think about how we're going to actually implement some of this. How do you know with the feed of a camera, frames coming in, that somebody's actually looking at something? Because that's a really hard problem to solve because there's so many different ways that you could do it. So starting with us being Swift developers, it's looking at the vision framework. And what you can do with this, a few different things. The simplest is classification, getting a taxonomy, a description of labels, and a reference of a confidence about how confident it is about these things in the scene. So if you take a photograph from our office here, you can see the varying confidence levels of all the things that can see that it's on your device, on the neural engine, what it's inferring. This is not a stable way of working because I could change the lighting, I could move some things around, and it all completely changes. But it is a good sort of first pass, a good sort of cheap sanity test that you can do before you try something more convoluted or complex. And that's exactly what we did. There's a paper from the early 2000s for a computer vision algorithm called Scale Invariant Feature Transform by David G. Lowe. And this paper and this computer vision algorithm talks about extracting distinctive features, invariant features from images so that you're able to do matching. So what does that actually mean? Well, I could spend 30 minutes just talking about that, so I'm going to try and give you a summary. So if you take a frame and image of something, this algorithm, what it does is it extracts a series of features. So you can see around the window frames, around the chimneys, those are distinguishable features that if it's scale invariant, if it's breaking the image down, if it's dividing it down and blurring it, a difference of Gaussians to show how it can look at different blurring levels, that propagates different feature points. So the window frames being the example. And it's not clear to see, but those arrows actually differentiate as well. So that means at a different angle, I can start to match what I'm seeing, as well as from a distance, which is exactly what we need to be able to do. So by looking around, we discovered that there's a SIF metal implementation. Lukvan in 2023 took this, implemented it from the paper, and used the metal GPU, the metal compute shaders on an iPhone, on Apple devices to manage this. And then Nihan Tran took that and made a little demo viewer app that kind of helps illustrate how that actually works. And this, just to be clear, is a very simple example. I updated it, and by using the cupboards or the shelves in our office, you can see at an angle like this, and then one slightly ajar and rotation, you can see it's able to match some of the key points. Now, if you imagine that as a glasses wearer with frames coming in, that's something more stable and more reliable, even if things start to change, because it doesn't matter about color, it doesn't matter about lighting, it's the features of the image and the things that really stand out, like the chimneys, for example. So that was one problem we think we kind of solved. The next one was actually the UX, the development of how we actually show what we want to build. So we're all used to seeing a Figma diagrams of all the different stages, all of our phone apps, and building through, working through those stages. But now you have to show what the phone is doing at a point, and also what the user is seeing, because the glasses is a point of view. So one of the things that we tried to do was just have a really big, goofy looking glasses emoji or icon in our Figma designs to complement that, to sort of suggest in this flow, you're searching, we think you found something, so we want to hold your attention for a moment, and then we can tell you that you discovered it. So with that, you can see here in my amazing developer UI that a designer has unfortunately not been able to look at. What I'm doing is taking those matches and over time appending frames and building a confidence. So if we're looking at something and we have a very low threshold to think, maybe you with a seated image, your curator thinks that, yeah, maybe you're looking at this art piece. So maybe if you're standing a bit longer and we're accumulating frames, we have more confidence that actually you're looking at this thing based on its key points. So that's exactly what we're able to build, and we had the full power of the GPU to run that for us. So we took all this, we went to Meta Connect in San Francisco, my first time there, and we were able to find the folks in Meta who were building this, at this time, a private toolkit, show them this feedback, what the experience is like, and they were super excited because at the same time, they announced that there is going to be a public toolkit, and ourselves, LNR, along with Disney, Logitech, and Microsoft, were going to be partners. So everybody could read at this point back in September that there was going to be a toolkit, but only us and a select few actually had access to it, a more formal version of what I'd been working with at this point. Today, you can all download it. Every month there is a new version and it gets better and better. So let me tell you about how it actually is assembled, what way the package looks. You get 3 frameworks. Your first 2 are essential because the first thing you want to do is discover, to register, and handle permissions. It's not just connect to Bluetooth device and away you go. It's a little bit more convoluted for good reason, which I'll talk about a little later. And then also a framework for managing the camera access. So whenever you need to start a stream, configuring your frame rate, your quality, your codecs, handling the frames that come back from the SDK, and how you want to process those. And now maybe you think, well, I don't really want to invest in buying a lot of glasses for my team if we have an idea for a project. Well, they thought about this and they provide a mock device kit. So you can either say, whenever my app is running and I'm running a stream, play this video on the file, or just use your iPhone sensor as of the latest version. So it picks that convenience for you, which is really great. So one other thing some of you might be aware, I don't think you can buy these in Europe, but Meta actually make a pair of smart glasses that have a little tiny screen in them. I tried them at Connect and they're super cool, but you cannot program for them. There's no hooks to them in the SDK. Now, because the SDKs are public, there's GitHub issues and discussion. If this is something you're really excited about, then my suggestion is, if we all have done this, go and say, upvote and say, it'd be really cool to be able to do this. But for now, we're going to focus just on without a screen and using the camera and the other accessories. So spatial guide, I want to touch back on that because we gave it a really clean liquid polish. I would say it's actually one of the best showcases of liquid glass. It was my introduction to the liquid glass API. So be able to scroll through and see your Meta glasses aspect was really nice there. And as we made it more formalized, obviously you want to put your phone away. And we know what iOS is like whenever you background your app, basically it shuts off. So to manage that, thankfully at the same time that iOS 26 was coming out, and I put it on my 14 Pro and it overheated so much I needed to put it in the refrigerator. With the beta builds, I'm sure some of you maybe had the same experience. You could ask the system, my app needs to use the GPU in the background. And it's going to say, okay, maybe I will let you do that. But the user is going to see a persistent notification to tell them that this app is doing a lot of work and be mindful of it. And that's how we kept the flow going initially, how we kept it so you could put it in your pocket. And then for SIFT, for Scale Invariant Feature Transform, I've later migrated to accelerated features. I would do it a disservice to say it's like SIFT but better, but you can really think about it like that. The example here, the gift on the left, is showing how much faster it is on the CPU, especially with erratic movement compared to SIFT. And because it runs on the CPU, there's a portability there that we can share with our friends in Android, because it's not just about, yes, here today we're about Swift Barcelona, but we need to think about our friends in Android as well. So then the title of this talk is about the making of Dumbo Spatial Guide. So Dumbo is this cool neighborhood in New York, in Brooklyn. And for the last several years, they've been reinvigorating it with public street art, with investment, and making it a really cool place to come and discover. And what I'm going to do now is show you a concept that our co-founder put together to help communicate to the team at Team Dumbo what we could possibly do with a wider spatial guide.
The Manhattan Bridge overpass. Directly ahead is a mural by Shepard Fairey, painted in 2013. He is the artist famous for the Obama Hope poster. Once a gritty hub of paper mills and factories, this area is now a world-class playground for designers and artists. You're looking at Yuko Shimizu's mural titled Yes, and its partner piece by Stefan Sagmeister across the street. I've sent their design sketches to your device.
So that's the concept. This idea that rather than a contained, curated indoor museum experience, like we showcased at the beginning, now we're going out to the streets around New York City and trying to do something grander. So that challenges a few things, both technically, but especially in user experience, because this is an app that we want to put in people's hands. Can I get a show of hands of how many folks keeps their phones on silent permanently? Does anybody here not do that? Because I've owned like 3 iPhones and they've always been on permanent silence. If you have a Bluetooth device connected, be AirPods or glasses, and you've started this app for the first time, it's going to be narrating to you. It's going to be talking about each screen, a summary of what's going on. And the haptics are going to feel a little bit different because they're custom, and the sound effects for hitting each button is as well. Because this is a narrated experience, the unique selling point of this experience is being able to walk around with your phone in your pocket, being able to communicate to someone through audio, through the speakers and the glasses. It's important for us to try and establish that expectation early, rather than you start a tour, you went through all this ceremony, and then why is my app talking to me? So this is something that we've been experimenting with to try and ease that friction. So with that, I talked about the fact that you can't just connect to these glasses through Bluetooth and start going. You actually have to do a bit of a process. You as a developer need to get your users, your people, to actually register against the Meta AI app. Because if you have a pair of these glasses and you want to manage them, it all revolves around the Meta AI app itself. So your app needs to have a binding to that and register on a web platform that Meta have. But that's not enough to just give camera permission. Because like the way that in our apps, that we have to, if we need the camera for something, we need to ask the user, please, can we have the camera? And this is why. This is the same flow that Meta actually enforce. Because you can't just start taking pictures and recording because you've just registered with the app. Every time you start a session, it's a very explicit thing for the user because they see it light up internally, but they also hear it, which is, I think, is a great detail because it helps the user understand how these apps in a new domain, how they're actually interacting with your glasses. Because whenever you're into the app and you've completed your onboarding and you're ready to go, it's all about starting the tour. You hit start tour, it tells the glasses to start recording, and we encourage you just to put your phone away and just start walking around and see what you can find. And in the background, we have your location. We're monitoring where you are, where you're walking to. And if you're close enough to something, we can try and detect or match it for you. And background is something I've personally struggled a lot with because iOS really doesn't want you to do that. But thankfully, Oscar at Meta, the developer relations team, has published this really detailed guide, both for Android and iOS, exactly what you need to do if you want to build an experience like this, which is great because now we don't need that GPU entitlement and we don't need to do anything really intensive that way. And I know we're at Swift Barcelona, and you're probably wondering, that app you're showing us, where's the Liquid class? It's actually a Flutter app, because we're really big on Flutter here at Levin Rignium. And if you think, oh, that's not cool, that's not great, try hot reload just once and building an app for that, and then let's talk about it. Because a certain legend that I get to work with, Gautier, has built a wrapper from LNR. Gautier has built a wrapper around the DAT for Android and iOS. So you can drop it in, and the convenience you have a Flutter, we extend that, and we maintain that, which has really been super useful for building out experiences like this. So there is one problem though. Imagine you're in Brooklyn and you see a sculpture and you could walk a whole way around it. How is banking several images a curator would need to take first of all to be able to detect and find and figure out that you're looking at something? I don't feel really good about that, and I don't really know how to solve that. So I cheated with our good friend Gemini Flash 2.5. Because we have location, because we can prescribe to the model that this is a location-based experience, a public street guide, and that the landmarks are all old enough that it knows about them. Because your location is being used, if you're close to something and we know that, we can start asking Gemini at a very low frame rate, is this person looking at a landmark? And then we can figure out and tell them, notify them that way. And back in February, I was in our office in Brooklyn, and a new Nine Inch Nails album came out. It was really cold outside. I had my coffee, having a great time. And I wanted to sanity test the discovered flow because there's actually Tom Furin's water tower is actually right beside the building. So I thought I could cheat Gemini. I thought I would put the picture of a landmark on my screen, and because the location is close enough, it's going to send those frames and ask Gemini, is the person at this thing? And what did Gemini say? Yeah, your laptop screen is showing that, but you're not physically present, so this is not a match. You're not going to fool me. So that I was actually really quite taken aback by that, but it meant that I went outside, and there's another one, the ampersand that you can see on the right image here in the background. I was able to walk over and prove out that experience with my phone in my pocket, walking around, taking frames in every so often, and be able to discover it. And that's proven out the whole thing, which is really quite a special moment. So what advice to have for you developers and generally for folks that maybe consider working in this? The good news is that you already know a lot of these APIs. Nearly 20 years of working around location and audio and image, what the DAT, the device access toolkit from Meta, whenever it gives you frame, it can give you a sample buffer. It can give you types that are native to Swift and now Objective-C, so you can do whatever you need to do with them. So don't be discouraged just because there's the friction of working with a new device as part of your app. But engineering and UX management needs a shift, and it is more consuming to iterate on something like this. One of my biggest mistakes in building this was I'll just keep getting up off the chair and I'll keep testing this thing whenever there's tooling there from Meta to help automate, to be more deterministic about how detection works. That was a mistake I made, so by all means, play around with it, but if you're building something meaningful, set up test scenarios so it gives you the confidence that it's continually going to work, because everybody's going to look and walk slightly differently. So the experience might not be super consistent in that manner. So give yourself peace of mind this way. And experimenting with haptics and sound effects is something we've recently been doing to give ourselves a bit more confidence that we're not going to scare or surprise the user whenever they start the experience. And that's something I recommend if it's maybe going to benefit your experiences. And of course, battery anxiety now extends to multiple devices. So the SDK has hooks for whenever the glasses might overheat. There's ways to manage memory and thermals on your iPhones, for example. So those are things you need to be mindful of and handling as worst case scenarios whenever you're in a long sort of session like the examples that I have. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention privacy, because I would expect at least one of you to ask a question about it. And is it going to be great if we all had smart glasses, that all had cameras and all had microphones and everybody had something like that? And then maybe that is quite dystopian. I'm not really sure, But as part of our involvement and the work that we've been doing here, I think it's better to be in the conversation and having an influence and some agency there and trying it out. And maybe it's all horrible, maybe it all goes really wrong, or maybe it doesn't, because at Mobile World Congress this year, I was able to pick up the Google's display glasses. Android XR is getting quite mature, and Apple probably going to be building something the same, depending on how you read the rumors. So that's the stance that I take, and I think the team does as well, rather than standing at the side and saying, you know, this is all a load of shit and we shouldn't be bothered with this. That's where we're at now, but I know that doesn't solve the problem. It's a conversation, and it's something that we all need to be talking about continually. And what about Dumbo? Could you download it today? Because the DAT, the Device Access Toolkit, is still in quite an early version. If you upload this to App Store Review, they're going to say, what's this? Because it's a new hardware identifier, effectively. I think it's MiFi or something like that. So you can do your internal test flights, but you cannot roll it out publicly. That's something Meta is planning to do later in the year. And you can be sure that while we run our internal tests with a select one group of users, whenever we are able to release something like this, we will certainly let you know and really shout about it and all the other things that we've been doing as well. So I want to thank you all for listening to my talk this evening. And I want to give Ronan a shout out for all the work that he does, putting time and money organizing this. And I'd ask that you consider even a small donation, because Ronan needs to go out and borrow gear and try and piece together gear to try and keep the community here going and keep us engaged and talking with each other. So if you could take the time to consider doing that, I'd be really appreciated. And finally, we also run a Meridian Meetups group, which is for mobile app developers, designers, and folks in product looking to bridge into spatial. So if you want to take some note of these, and we also have a computing business newsletter. All the rumors, all the releases, all the things across Meta, Vision Pro, Meta Quest, for example. Take a look at that there and let us know what you think. But I'll take a wee pause, and I think we've got time for some questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that SDK available for anybody to download now?
Yes.
Yeah.
For the from September to December, you could read a lot about it. You can see the samples, like videos, but very few people actually have access. But now there's nothing stopping you downloading the SDKs for iOS or Android. There you go.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the adoption rate for these glasses. Do you know any numbers, like what's the rate? No. What percentage of people actually use these at the moment? In America, let's say, because in Europe, I think it's
not probably the same.
Yeah.
So what I know is, and it escapes me, it's either 5 or 7 or 10 million Meta AI glasses were sold in the last year. Because what Mark Zuckerberg has said at a previous Meta Connect is that these have taken off a lot sooner than he expected. He thought that the ones with the displays, the glasses with displays, had to be released before the mass public would be consumers would be interested about it, because there's even more utility there. But it's certainly across the mind share around it. You know, you've got that friction, that negativity in media, but you also got people, you know, I see people here on the street. We obviously have a bunch of them, but you're right. If you go to Google I/O, WWDC, they're everywhere. So it seems like it's just continuing onwards. And like I said, with Android XR demo last year, Google I/O was really impressive, because they came out with something that was kind of janky, but they were proud not to show it. They have a really mature SDK from what I've seen so far. And then goodness knows whenever Apple, I know the Vision Pro is being killed again, but it's just more like we're going to try more hardware and maybe move more people into glasses, for example. So I think it's a good place to be aware of if you're not actually developing it. At least that's how we feel.
So I suppose in 2 years' time, it's going to be quite significant. Yeah.
I would be very surprised if it wasn't.
Yeah.
You tried the one with the video, the screen?
Yes.
So I want to understand, like the girls that are close, they use a special lens so that you can focus on the screen. How does it work, since this is glasses?
They have, I don't know the technical details, but you'll see if I go I can go back to them.
Because you cannot focus on the glass itself. It's too
They are
close.
called like waveguides, something like that. It's a treatment in the glasses, the little lines over
You
there.
see these little lines here?
It's like a display.
So it's like a projector almost. And if I'm looking at you now, I'm looking at you and I'm wearing the glasses, and if I look at the screen, it's like this. It's very subtle.
But how do you focus at that distance? It's impossible theoretically. You cannot do that. Normally, what they do when it's not glass, like a simulator or the Apple Vision, is they have a kind of inverse lens where they make the image at infinity. So
Mhm.
you're very quiet and you just look at infinity, you see the image. How do you do that there? You don't know. Okay, I will ask Claude.
Yeah, ask Claude. Claude will know better than me, that's for sure. That's for sure. But they were,
But it works. Like you try
It was-
you read and
it was like this. They took you into different rooms, and one of the rooms, a person was standing underneath a big industrial fan, and they were speaking, and you're getting live captions. So, like
you
what?
read it.
And you can read it. So if you think about, for all of the negativity and all the bad sentiment around smart glasses, like accessibility is that one thing that I'm holding on for how it can be transformative for people. The problem is nowadays, at the moment for me, and why your parents probably couldn't use it, I know my mum couldn't use something like this, is you need to have the phone. You can't just don the glasses and have all that intelligence. That a lot of the power is in the phone, and certainly Meta, Google, and Apple will want to get there, and I'm sure they will, but it's a few years out yet. So you have this constraint, if you want to see it like that. So we make the most of it in that sense.
There's like no power in the glass itself.
The batteries are very tiny, and
It's
these,
just speaker, microphone, that's it. Camera.
and I mean, I can't say if they have I would be really surprised if they even had a really tiny model in there. I think it's trying to do everything, and what they're able to do even through Bluetooth is really impressive from my experience, because Bluetooth is so constrained, and anybody that's tried to develop a Bluetooth will know that it's an absolute nightmare.
So given your experience, because you seem like you're the person with most experience here with these glasses, because you tried them and built something for them. Where do you think, like from the commercial point of view, where do you see like the first wave of potential products that could be developed for these? Because they've been talking about the glasses. I've got like Meta Quest at home, and I hardly ever put it on.
And I'm the same. The first year you love it, and then it's this.
Or a month.
No, well.
Depends.
Yeah, it depends what you're doing, and certainly.
Yeah.
But because
like the ergonomics is just not there.
yeah.
But going back to the glasses, like where do you think this could actually have practical use? Like the first sort of practical, what kind of applications would you find most? I don't know if you understand my question. It's like, where do you think?
Where are we going to create the value?
The breakthrough is going to happen
The
in
breakthroughs.
terms of the app that you need to have, the killer app.
The killer app. That's a great question.
Not museum.
I think it's already out. I think like the
Well-
camera, from your point of view,
Yeah.
has already a lot of people like buying into them.
So,
And speakers
what's the
help.
application right now? Like, where do you think? Because you can't build anything for it. It's just what.
No, you can.
You want to hear my idea? So increasingly we're engaging a lot with AI, and it would be great if AI had a lot more context about what we're doing, what
Yeah.
we're looking at, especially what we're looking at.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of situations I've been in where I've wanted to have that AI just see exactly what I'm looking at, and I think that's going to be the killer app.
Oh, without doubt, this is going to be huge. I'm thinking more like, where's the first wave of products that's going to happen? Given the tech limitation, basically. Obviously, this is going to be like huge. This is going to be
I
like
think it's
the next
soon.
iPhone.
I think it's very soon.
I'm talking
So
about
Meta,
where do you
is
think
working a
the
lot on
breakthrough is
AI.
going to happen?
They're going to do this. They're probably going to have a first-party app, but I'm sure you'll be able to also build your own.
Yeah, no. I'm just wondering, like, where you guys think like the breakthrough is going to happen, like in what category?
Yeah. Yes.
Because obviously it's going to happen, but that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Where
The
do you
thing
think?
is that that use case of being able to
Yeah.
tell AI exactly what you are
Okay. So
seeing
like
can be
the
used
assistant.
for
Everything.
business in every
Sure,
kind
sure,
of
sure.
way you
Okay. So
could
probably
think. So, but that's the layer, the base layer
Sure,
that comes with it.
okay.
What might be useful is one of the things that Meta share to connect, I think to your point about AI, is their idea of personal superintelligence, and merging that with the having something so practical and so personal without the inconvenience of a Vision Pro or Meta Quest headset. That's their North Star, and that's where they want to get to. I don't know if they need to get the full way there before it really takes off, because the sales figures suggest that people are still buying into it and they're just refining it. Like the Gen 1 to Gen 2 is just slightly better camera, better battery, it's like an iPhone release in a lot of ways. What I would be most interested in would be around accessibility and taking that mindset in. So when thinking about parents, for example, and having to guide them in a certain way or something like that there. And the fact is the phone is the constraint. And as simple as we try and agonize over user experience and accessibility on the phone, being able to just look and talk and listen is the most natural human thing. And I think building around that, there's wealth of potential there.
Oh, without doubt. My question was more like about the first use cases where it's going to be like super useful.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the AI assistant, I
think that's going to be the one that carries it for a while.
Thinking more about like the developers, what you guys think they're going to do. But anyway, it's just just a commentary.
100%. No, appreciate it. One more question.
I was gonna just argue that probably like the first use cases, this is just like a deep assumption, but are those in which it is like critical that the use case requires glasses that you cannot really like use your phone for that use case.
Sure.
Personally, I only built B2B apps, business apps.
Yeah.
And I have as a freelancer, I have this client who has this app for like sites, like construction sites, and some of the users like they require like they don't have like a lot of room to operate, for example,
Sure.
like so they need to report like whatever incidents is on site, on top of the drawing.
So you're already building for glasses. You're already building software.
No. This is a mobile app.
Okay.
Glasses are not being used here, but I could see
Got it. Yeah.
like
the benefits.
a quite natural
Absolutely,
use case.
Sure.
So and like I think we naturally tend to think of what would we use these for, but then there are like many other problems out there that we don't have because they are like industry specific and that I think could be. I would see that as an entry point for this technology, personally. But then again,
that's a great point. Yeah. So whatever you need, the hands.
Exactly.
Hands-free,
Yes.
they're going to adopt it as soon as possible.
For the people operating the lift. So before in the truck, you have all the manual for all the lift. Now it's an iPad, but you still need to not work to read the iPad.
Sure.
Here, and it can guide you. This is like far in the future.
Hey there, Juan, you have a question or any comments or ready to go?
Yeah, if I may, just wanted to there are some friends actually like doing an app for skiing, and it's a use case that I find really interesting because it's a place where you don't want to take out your phone and you have the display of the skiing routes and also the position of your friends, right? So you'll have it right on the glasses. And you're going to see like a diversity of also type of glasses. So now there's also the Oakley models. I don't know if you see them, but it's more sportswear, right?
That's right.
So yeah, just that's only my 2 cents. Like I think this is like a particular use case that can be really useful in this form factor versus what we currently have, which is a phone or a watch.